We've said goodbye to Van Gogh. Let's pay a last visit to the Gugging Asylum. I'm sorry I couldn't say earlier that I totally like their art. I do like some of it. I just think the collector's fascination with it is a bit mystical and woozy. I know the type of schizophrenia these patients suffer from is a very heavy one and can never be cured. The patients can only be protected. I'm sure they'll be okay here, watched over by psycho-doctors. I'm going to leave them in peace now. Tomorrow, I'm going round to the house of the greatest Viennese psycho-doctor who ever lived, Sigmund Freud. Welcome back. It's part 2 of a programme about the allure that madness has for culture. This part is about rationalising the irrational, and its star is Sigmund Freud. Freud's book, The Interpretation of Dreams, was published here in Vienna 100 years ago. Its influence on modern culture was enormous. It's the manual for Freud's basic discoveries, the unconscious mind, and the hidden dreams and fantasies of the mind. There is nothing in culture today that is not Freudian. The psychoanalysis system that he invented is about seeing one thing in terms of another, seeing what is there in terms of a symbolic meaning that it might have. For example, in a dream, if you're in a building on the top floor, it usually symbolises the conscious mind. The floors below are more bodily and sexual, more mysterious. And the very bottom, well, who knows what fantasies are lurking there. This is actually Freud's apartment in Vienna, 19 Bergasserstrasse. It was here that Freud treated his patients and wrote his books. He had his special test cases, little Hans, who was frightened of horses, and the Wolfman, who was frightened of wolves, because they symbolised his mother's fur coat, which he glimpsed when he spied her having sex once.
I started my professional activity as a neurologist trying to bring relief to my neurotic patients. I discovered some important new facts about the unconscious, the role of instinctual urges, and so on. Out of these findings grew a new science, psychoanalysis, a part of psychology. My name is Sigmund Freud.
Freud was a great cigar smoker. He said anything can be a phallic symbol, but sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Here he is in the last year of his life with his daughter Anna in Hampstead, London. Freud's study is filled with sculptures from ancient civilizations. From the most ancient myths, Freud got his theories of unconscious drives, the death drive, the love drive. These unconscious fantasies have an enormous influence on conscious life, he claimed. Preposterous, society said at first. Well, you're just in denial, Freud said to society. But some artists thought Freud's theories were fantastic. They were the Surrealists. Here's some typical surrealism from the 1920s by the artist Man Ray. It's something disturbing made out of something everyday. This is Salvador Dali's painting, The Metamorphosis of Narcissus. Dali is the surrealist everyone knows. You see one thing turning into another. Hands turning into women, heads turning into eggs. Nothing is what it seems at first. The meanings are slipping and sliding. Freud had a notion of the unheimlich, the uncanny, where an ordinary object suddenly becomes strange. The surrealists love that notion, and it's really what drives surrealism. A lobster and a telephone. It doesn't sound particularly weird, but a lobster and a telephone. André Breton, the leader of the surrealists, thought modern life lacked imagination, and Freud's discoveries could help with that. Breton, on the right, was helped in this programme by Sir Herbert Reed, the art critic.
The world of dreams is a strange world which most of us visit only in our sleep. The whole aim of surrealism is to explore this world and to bring it into relation with our daily life.
This is Entr'acte, a surrealist film with Marcel Duchamp and Man Ray playing chess. It has all the fizz of surrealism and all its atmosphere of the unexpected. But the world of dreams hasn't stopped being strange. It's just that surrealism has stopped being that. It's become familiar. Everything that used to be unexpected about it, we now expect with a slight groan. Surrealism must always have chess because chess is intellectual. A bit of classic arts documentary music must always be tinkling away. The skies are always normal looking to signify that something enigmatic is about to happen. Language is always mysterious, even when it's straightforward, just like in dreams. This is not a pipe, reads the straightforward words on René Magritte's painting of a pipe. Crikey, must be a phallic symbol then. There must always be posh city gent clothes, because bowler hats are menacing in surrealism. Artist berets and smocks would be too normal. No need to spell out the symbolism of anything long and hard, especially if there's some nudity nearby, which there always will be. Presenters on surrealist TV documentaries are always asked to do this. It's raining men! Hallelujah! Now it's sunny again on a London rooftop, with curtain twitching going on like crazy all around. Black and white squares. They symbolise the swirling sexual drives of the psychic underworld, forever bursting through into the buttoned-up overworld. These surrealist clichés are part of light entertainment now. Dream symbolism has become a slightly dead language because of its overuse. It used to stand for high art weirdness. Now it stands for TV lightness. What used to be artistic subversion of society using Freudian methods is now TV comedy innuendo using Benny Hill methods. Freudian symbols are the common currency of comedy and arts documentaries. The old symbols are always being brought out of the cupboard for both of them. The only difference with art documentaries is that you're not supposed to laugh. Thanks, Magritte. You can get back in your cupboard now.
I'm crazy.
Salvador Dali again. He's supposed to be the craziest of the surrealists. He behaved as if the whole idea of Freud's notion of the unconscious mind had been invented for him personally.
Every of my mythology starts before born. My life is 2 months before I am born inside of the uterus intrauterine dream of my mother, because Sigmund Freud told me probably 2 months before.
It was Dali who first took surrealism into show business. He was a big favourite in America and in Hollywood. It was only natural that he should have designed a set for Alfred Hitchcock. America loved Dali's mad act. For us now, it's pretty amusing too, although it's quite familiar, as it reminds us of the young British artist's Celebrity Act, which started up in the 1980s and is still going strong, all angling for attention and commercial success. This is Dali's Manifesto of Madness. None of the surrealists were really mad. They were interested in poetic imagery. They weren't at all interested in the visual power of Van Gogh's art, only his myth as a madman and an outsider. Freud himself was obsessed by ancient art and Renaissance art, but baffled by surrealist art. He didn't know what to do when Dali appeared at Freud's house in Hampstead one day, with his manifesto in one hand and his painting The Metamorphosis of Narcissus in the other. Freud found Dali's theories, which were supposed to be based on Freud, tiresome. Dali himself, though, Freud found quite striking, because in his desire to make an impression, Dali seemed so extreme.
Yo volvía a que leyeran tesis científicas. Y al final, puñetazo, digo, quiero que lea esta noche. Entonces, Freud se quedó un poco asombrado. Nunca he visto un prototipo de español más claramente. Es un fanático.
The lovely old Café Lentman in Vienna Freud used to come and have a ponder about where man had arrived in his psychic development. Where have we arrived in this program? From reasoned arguments about the irrational by Freud to irrationalism as something slightly fake. The mass media is full of Freudian notions that come from psychoanalysis, Freud's psychic health system. But because the mass media is only for entertainment, it's not using Freud for anyone's psychic health. Freud brought massive awareness of what goes on in the dark recesses of the mind to an incredulous society. Society absorbed it all, and what then came out of society was a new type of culture, full of Freudian ideas, for people to distract themselves with, because society was still just as bad as it's ever been. What a funny little spiral of madness, from a revolution of the mind, where pleasure is subversive, to today's world of ads and movies, where pleasure is mindless. The pleasure plane. I'm catching it now, back to London. The back streets of Soho. It's always full of pleasure seekers, getting out of their minds. Tonight there's a knocking sound. I'm going to down some headache pills to kill it. These noises and films are an installation by the American artist Tony Ursula.
Oh no, I've got to recover from a nervous breakdown.
It has a kind of familiar spookiness that at first I feel a bit antagonistic toward. It seems too corny. But then I changed my mind because of irrationalism. This art is true to irrationalism's new place in our culture today, right at the forefront of it, but tamed right down, so that it fits with art.
Machine.
Instead of being genuinely mad, or even genuine at all particularly, we ask our new, up-to-date version of surrealist art to be resonant, creepy and weird, but neatly packaged so we can soon move on.
Lose your mind.
The madness here is madness done in a very knowing way, which is the way we like nowadays. The work has a serious theme, the paranormal, spiritualists, but it's received by its audience as just another theme park pleasure dome version of madness. Just another stop on a cultural night tour.
I want to be you.
Knock knock, who's there? It's the Surrealist ad break, mate. Madness and drugs. Drugs and enlightenment. That's the subject now in part 3 of our program. I would say where we are, but I don't know. It's as if the doors of perception have been cleansed, and I can see existence clearly for the first time. Some kind of empty plateau under a blue sky. I was in Soho before, someone said something and I went into a dream, and suddenly I was out here. The world was a giant ant. The Beatles, Carlos Castaneda, William Blake. Those were all quotes from them that rushed into my mind just then, the big cultural figures of the 1960s that stand for out-of-your-head hallucinatory experience. At night, imagination can play tricks on you, especially if someone spikes your aspirin with LSD, which might have been what happened to me back there in part 2. William Blake, who lived on this very street in the 1790s, thought that imagination wasn't worth anything unless it came from heaven.